Good evening. Welcome to Auroville Festival, Day 5. This year, Auroville Festival's theme is the first quality of Mother's symbol, sincerity. And we have a theme for each day also. And today, being the day of Maheshwari, our theme of the day is knowledge. And we have today Lieve, Manu, and Varun with us to discuss about the multiple aspects of international zone. In Maheshwari's eye, all are portions of the one. In this session, we shall explore the role of the international zone in its attempt to manifest a living example of unity in diversity applied on a global scale at the level of various nations and cultures which comprise today's humanity. How might the elements from various cultures aid in forming a bridge between what we have been and what we shall become, urging constant progress and lifelong learning? That's going to be the broad theme around which we are going to explore. So, Lieve, Manu, you have joined us before for Varun. So, the format is such that we begin, from your understanding. I would like to hear you. What is your understanding of international zone? What are its larger aspirations? And from there, we will take our conversation towards the how aspects, how do we achieve the aspirations that Mother has set forth for us? And then finally, we end with the immediate, doable, practicable things that we need to manifest. May I invite now Lieve to opening remarks on international zone.
Okay, the international zone is one of the 4 zones that were the first task or indication that the Mother had given to Roger when she started talking about the city that she was planning. She had drawn 4 petals and said these are 4 zones that are needed. The international zone is obviously the zone where she had intended to have some kind of a manifestation of something that would give the people the experience of the ultimate oneness of humanity. Mm-hmm. I don't think the world has moved that much since then. Today, still there may be some kind of more an understanding of the oneness of humanity. But specifically at that time, it was a quite new concept to come up with. And the immediate idea of what she intended with the international zone would for most people be, a World Expo, because she spoke about pavilions of all the countries in the world. And so that sounds very much like a World Expo that has existed since the 1850s or something. And she had the experience herself very clearly and very positively of the Expo in Paris in 1900, which was a very advanced kind of thing apparently. They had a more than 3 kilometer, 3.5 kilometer stretch, or even like a flyover kind of thing, of an electrical rolling pathway. So people could go on that exposition, you could do a whole tour on a rolling pathway. I can't say, it was called a boardwalk or something, and it was an electrical thing, and there were 2 parts, one where you stepped up, which was a bit slower, and then the larger part had a quite fast pace, had a speed to bring you around. So she was very much impressed by all of these things. And even though it may feel that we're supposed to do something like that, I don't think that that's what it's supposed to be at all, in fact. It's probably not at all a kind of an expo, even though she might have had for Auroville certain ideas from that very futuristic 1900 Paris Expo. What I think the international zone is supposed to be is somehow, and I don't even know what form it needs to get, but it needs to somehow be an experience, a kind of material experience that people can have that pushes them into understanding, in fact, we're all the same, we're all one. Or the oneness of humanity needs to come out of that experience. She wanted people to have the possibility to experience all kinds of cultures of the world in one rather small space. It's not very large. Auroville as a whole is not even so large. So it's only one portion out of that. So it's not a very large space that she placed all of these things in. And the experience that she wanted to have that combination, that mixture of everything just next to each other. So I think for people to just see the similarities ultimately, that only the exterior is different, but ultimately deep down below there's just human and there's nothing else. So now how that needs to be, how to give that form, I don't know right now, but the point is for 50 years hardly anything has happened here. We're in the middle of Bharat Nivas, which is the pavilion of India.
Yeah.
Which has had a lot of development at that very early time. It was started immediately. And apart from that, there's hardly anything. There's a Tibetan pavilion, which we're not allowed to call the Tibetan pavilion because the Chinese government can't accept it, because Tibet is not an independent nation. So officially the title is Pavilion of the Tibetan Culture. Then there is the Inukshuk.
Yeah.
Then there was also first the American pavilion from the US, which then seemed to be what appeared to be placed in a completely wrong location and then needed to turn itself into the International House.
Yeah.
And then there is now something like the French pavilion, but let's face it, that's not really something where anything really happens. So, it's a very temporary kind of small thing. It's like a placeholder kind of thing, more or less. And that's about it, what is happening around here in that whole thing.
Yeah.
And there's also, but I don't want to take away, you guys need to be able to say something, but there's also the problem of Bharatipuram, which is Ekotakarai, which is...
Yeah, we'll come to the practical aspects. To just touch upon, what do you think is the aspirational value for us in the international zone? We talked about it on a collective level, how this can stand for diversity, unity in diversity. What is it that we can all take individually? What is it that we should aspire for? What is international zone for each one of us?
But the whole point is that the international zone should be the experience of not an individuality, but of a wholeness. So I feel that what should it do for me or so? Well, that's the last important thing here. The important thing is that for everybody, somehow, it's a bit like the gardens of Matrimandir, where Mother said you need to have the experience of that quality in that garden, which is an immense ask. It's something that God knows when we'll be able to realize that, but she wanted people to come into the gardens and then feel the quality. And that's for me about the same thing in the international zone. People should come here and somehow feel the unity of humanity. Just feel that, feel also the beauty of all different cultures, but feel at home in all of the cultures. Instead, I come out of Belgium, out of Europe, and xenophobia is just part of the culture, It's, you need to be xenophobic in order to do something like colonization. Otherwise, if you can't other, and if you can't put these other people in a very different category than you, how can you start killing all of them and subjugating them? So the experience that we all should have, I feel, is that it's beautiful, different outsides, all very exciting, and a feeling of belonging to each of the cultures.
Wonderful.